Captain Elias Ward was a man who had seen too much of order. He had spent years traveling between human colonies, moving through clean metallic halls, shining starports, and cities that looked almost the same no matter which world he landed on. The people were polite, the machines were efficient, and everything worked according to schedule. It should have been perfect. But Elias felt suffocated. Behind the calm order of the colonies, something was missing. People laughed, but it was shallow. Relationships existed, but they were often engineered by algorithms and personality matches. Machines handled hunger, thirst, and even companionship. A person could live an entire lifetime without ever facing danger, pain, or even the raw unpredictability of nature. Elias hated it. He wanted something untamed, something real. He was not reckless, not foolish. He had fought in border wars and had learned discipline. But inside his heart, there burned a hunger, one for something beyond smooth cities and polite machines. He wanted to feel the world beneath his hands, to look at someone who was not shaped by technology or order, but by raw instinct. That hunger grew until whispers reached him. Whispers of a planet on the edge of mapped space, a jungle world wrapped in storms, where machines often failed and colonists who tried to settle were forced to leave. They spoke of a woman there. They called her Kara. She was not exactly alien, nor exactly human. Some said she was the child of colonists who had once settled and vanished. Others said she was born of the jungle itself. She was wild, fierce, and dangerous. Hunters claimed to have seen her moving through the green canopy like lightning, leading packs of beasts as if they obeyed her command. No one dared to approach her for long. No one claimed to truly know her, but the stories described her as beautiful, terrifying, and untamed. The very thought lit a spark inside Elias. Here was someone, something, not shaped by sterile colonies or AI comforts. Here was a living spirit of wilderness, and deep inside, Elias wanted to see her, to know her, even if it meant danger. So he set his course. The journey took weeks. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, was small but reliable. He had flown alone for years, carrying cargo or taking exploration contracts, but this time his mission was only personal. As he approached the planet, the sight stole his breath. The world was a giant sphere of green, wrapped in swirling silver clouds. Storms lashed across the atmosphere, flashes of lightning sparking like fire veins. It was alive, more alive than any world he had seen. As his ship entered orbit, sensors went wild. The readings were inconsistent. Magnetic fields twisted strangely, and entire regions shifted like the jungle itself was moving. His navigational AI stuttered, unable to keep a steady lock. Unstable terrain detected, the AI warned. Recommend. Aborting descent. Elias smiled grimly. Not a chance. The descent shook his ship like a beast trying to tear it apart. By the time he landed in a small clearing, sweat ran down his back. Outside the windows, the jungle loomed like an ocean of trees, massive, towering, their branches interwoven into a roof that blotted out the sun. The air shimmered with heat. Strange calls echoed through the foliage. The ground was thick with roots, vines, and glowing plants that pulsed faint light as if alive. Elias stepped out, breathing in the heavy air. It smelled of earth, damp, and something sharp, like the breath of a predator watching. His boots sank into moss, his skin prickled. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of a world that did not care about him. This was no safe colony. This was the wild, and somewhere inside it, she waited. The first day was survival. Elias carried weapons and scanners, but they felt useless compared to the sheer size of the jungle. The vines seemed to move when he wasn't looking. Small creatures with glowing eyes darted through the shadows. Once, he saw a massive lizard with 6 legs crawl across a fallen tree, its scales shimmering like liquid metal. By nightfall, The jungle came alive with sound, screeches, roars, rustling leaves. He built a fire, not only for warmth, but to remind himself that he still carried a piece of human civilization. The flames danced against the darkness, and he felt eyes on him. Was it her? He did not see her, but he felt a presence. Something was watching. On the third day, he met the jungle's teeth. A predator struck at dawn. It was like a panther, but with a body covered in thorn-like spines. It moved faster than his eyes could follow, leaping from the trees with a roar that rattled his bones. Elias barely rolled aside in time, firing his plasma pistol. The shot grazed it, making the beast scream but not fall. It lunged again. Elias stumbled, slipping on wet roots. His weapon flew from his hand. The beast's jaws opened, rows of serrated, teeth flashing. And then she came. A blur of motion from the canopy above. She landed on the beast's back with the grace of a predator. Her body was lean, her skin marked with lines of earth paint and strange glowing patterns. Her hair was wild, falling like a mane around her shoulders. Her eyes, bright, burning gold, met Elias's for the briefest instant before turning back to the beast. With a cry that shook the trees, she drove a spear into its neck. The creature thrashed, but she moved with perfect balance, twisting as if she were part of its struggle. Another strike, and the predator collapsed, its body twitching before going still. Silence followed. Only the crackle of Elias's fire and the drip of blood from the beast's jaws filled the air. Elias stood frozen. She looked at him. Up close, she was nothing like the polished beauty of colony women. She was raw, fierce, untamed. Her skin carried scars. Her arms were corded with muscle, her eyes blazed with intelligence, both alien and human. She did not speak, but her expression spoke volumes. You survived this long. Impressive. But you are not of this world. Elias opened his mouth to speak. Thank you. But before he could finish, she gave a sharp whistle. From the shadows, two wolf-like creatures padded forward, their glowing eyes fixed on Elias. They circled him once, sniffed, then turned to her. She placed her hand on one of their heads, then looked back at Elias. For a heartbeat, he thought she might stay, but she leapt into the trees with a motion so smooth it seemed she belonged to the branches. Within seconds, she was gone. Elias stood staring at the empty canopy. The feral woman was real, and she was more than he had ever imagined. That night, Elias could not sleep. His mind replayed the sight of her, the way she moved, the way the beasts obeyed her, the fire in her eyes. He had come seeking something untamed, but he realized now he had underestimated her. She was not a savage creature. She was not a myth. She was power. She was freedom. And she was warning him, "This is my world. Survive if you can." For the first time in years, Elias felt alive. He whispered into the night, though she was nowhere near to hear him. "I will find you again, Kara," the jungle roared back, as if laughing at his promise. But Elias did not fear. The hunt had begun. Captain Elias Ward learned this on his second week in the green world. Even when no predator roared and no storm cracked through the sky, there was always sound. The trees groaned, insects hummed, leaves whispered against each other, and creatures shifted unseen. The jungle was alive, not in pieces, but as one massive, endless body, and inside that body, Elias was only a trespasser. He woke every morning with muscles sore from climbing, crawling, and running. His food rations were gone after the 5th day, and he had learned quickly that hunting here was unlike hunting on any human-settled world. The prey was clever, fast, and sometimes poisonous. The fruit glowed but turned bitter if handled wrong. Even water was a challenge. Clear pools sometimes turned acidic overnight, forcing him to test every sip. Still, he survived. Barely, but survival was not his only goal. He had come for her, Kara, the wild woman who had saved his life from the spined predator. He had seen her once, only once, but her image haunted him. Her golden eyes sharp as lightning, her voiceless command over beasts, her movements like part of the jungle itself. Every night, when he built his fire, he felt her watching. He would turn suddenly, scanning the trees, but only shadows and glowing leaves stared back. He told himself she was near. She had to be. If he wanted to see her again, he would have to prove himself. Not to her, perhaps, but to the jungle that belonged to her. On the 9th day, the trial came. Elias was moving along a ridge, his pack nearly empty. His scanner beeped faintly, picking up strange magnetic pulses underground. He frowned. Not minerals, he muttered. Too irregular. The ridge collapsed without warning. The ground shook and roots tore apart. Elias fell with the dirt into a pit that opened like a hungry mouth. He crashed down hard, his breath knocked from his lungs. Before he could rise, vines coiled around his arms and legs. He gasped. They were alive. The vines tightened, pulling him toward the center of the pit where a massive flower opened, its petals lined with teeth-like ridges. It pulsed, as though breathing. Acidic mist rose from its core, stinging his throat. Perfect, Elias growled, struggling against the vines. His knife flashed, cutting through the first coil. The vines hissed as if in anger, tightening again. He rolled, slicing, fighting, but for every vine he cut, 2 more wrapped around his body. The flower leaned closer, opening wider, and then he heard it. A low whistle, sharp and commanding. The vines shuddered. From above, Kara dropped into the pit, her body painted in fresh stripes of green and brown, blending perfectly with the jungle. She moved with the calm focus of a predator. In one hand, she carried her spear, in the other, a burning resin torch. Without hesitation, she thrust the torch at the vines. They recoiled, hissing as if the fire was poison. The flower screamed, not with sound, but with a vibration that shook Elias's chest. Kara slashed her spear across the thickest root, and the plant convulsed. In moments, the vines released Elias, retreating into the earth. The flower closed, sinking back into the pit. Silence returned. Elias lay gasping, his knife still in hand. Kara stood over him, golden eyes studying him. This time she did not vanish at once. Elias pushed himself up slowly, careful not to make sudden moves. "You saved me again." His voice was rough but steady. She tilted her head, frowning slightly, as if the words were meaningless sounds. "You understand me, don't you?" Elias asked softly. He touched his chest. "Elias." Then he pointed at her. "Kara," for a moment. Her expression hardened. Then she crouched beside him and touched the ground. Her fingers traced the soil as if speaking through it. Elias watched, trying to understand. She pointed to herself, then to the trees above, then back to the ground. "You are the jungle," Elias murmured, guessing. Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't correct him. Instead, she stood and gave a short whistle. 2 wolf-like beasts padded into view. The same as before, their eyes glowing faintly blue. They sniffed Elias, growled low, but at Kara's gesture they calmed. One of them even sat near him, watching. Curiously, Elias's heart pounded. She commanded them not with force, but with presence. They were hers. Kara motioned to him, sharp, quick. She pointed at the ridge above. She wanted him to climb. Elias obeyed. By the time he pulled himself out of the pit, his arms burning, she was already at the top, standing like a shadow among the trees. He blinked, and she was gone again, the wolves padding after her. But this time, she had not vanished without a word. She had tested him. Days turned into trials. Each morning, Elias found signs she had been near. A pile of edible fruit left where he would see it. A mark carved into a tree, warning him of a nearby predator. Once he woke to find his fire had burned out, but a fresh ring of herbs had been laid around him, keeping insects away. She was watching him, guiding him, testing him, and the jungle tested him too. He faced storms that tore the canopy apart, rains so heavy they nearly drowned his fire. He fought swarms of insect-like creatures with stingers that melted metal. He climbed cliffs where the stone shifted under his fingers, alive with tiny burrowing things. Each time, he thought he would die. Each time, he survived. And each time, he felt her eyes on him. One night, Elias finally saw her again. He was sitting by his fire, sharpening his knife, when he noticed movement across the flames. She stood there, silent, her wolves beside her. Her hair caught the firelight, her eyes glowing like molten gold. Elias froze, then slowly set the knife aside. "You've been testing me?" he said quietly. "Why?" She tilted her head. "I came here for you," Elias admitted. His voice cracked, but he pushed on. "Not to hunt you, not to cage you. I wanted something real, something the colonies don't have. I wanted to see what wild truly means." Her gaze did not soften, but she stepped closer. For the first time, he noticed the marks on her skin. They weren't paint. They glowed faintly, like the veins of the glowing plants around them. They pulsed, with the rhythm of the jungle, alive. She was part of it. Kara crouched, touching the earth again. Her hand pressed into the soil, and the fire dimmed slightly, as if the jungle breathed with her. Then she looked at Elias, her eyes hard, questioning. Elias understood. She was asking, "Are you part of this world? Or only a visitor?" He swallowed. "I don't know yet." Her lips curved. Not a smile, but something close to it. She whistled softly, and the wolves lay down by the fire. Then, without a word, she vanished again into the shadows. But Elias knew this time it was different. She had not come only to save him. She had come to see if he was ready. The next day, the jungle proved he was not. Elias followed a stream deeper into the wild, hoping to track Kara, but the air grew heavy, almost choking. The trees twisted into shapes like claws, and the ground pulsed with faint light. His scanner beeped erratically, warning of dangerous energy fields. Then the ground split open. From it rose creatures unlike any he had seen. Spindly, insectoid, their bodies covered in chitin that shimmered like mirrors. They moved in swarms, clicking, their eyes like cold stars. Elias fired his pistol, burning holes through the first wave, but more crawled out, hundreds, swarming like a living tide. He stumbled back, nearly falling into the stream. He knew he couldn't win. Not alone. And then, from the treetops, a piercing whistle cut through the chaos. The swarm froze, their heads twitching toward the sound. Kara dropped into the clearing, her spear in hand. She moved like lightning, striking, dodging, leaping. The wolves tore into the creatures with savage precision. The jungle itself seemed to fight with her. Roots burst from the ground, tangling the swarm, while vines whipped down to strike. Elias fought beside her, his pistol firing, his knife flashing when they closed in. For the first time, he was not only surviving. He was part of the battle. When the last insect fell, silence returned. The stream bubbled softly, carrying away shards of broken chitin. Elias stood panting, blood on his arms, sweat on his face. Kara looked at him. For the first time, her eyes softened, not with warmth, but with recognition. He had fought, not as an intruder, but as one of the wild. And in that moment, Elias understood. The jungle was not only hers to test him with. It was alive, choosing whether he belonged. And Kara, she was its voice. That night, as he sat by his fire, Kara appeared again. She crouched across from him, her wolves at her side. This time, she did not vanish when he spoke. "You're showing me," Elias whispered. "Not what I thought I wanted. Not some fantasy. You're showing me what wild really means." Her eyes glowed in the firelight. She said nothing, but she did not need to. For the first time, Elias knew she would not leave him behind. Not yet. At first, every step had been struggle. The vines caught his feet, the insects stung his skin, the predators stalked him without fear. Yet now, after weeks of hardship, the forest did not resist him the same way. It still tested him, yes, but he noticed patterns. A warning call before a beast approached. A faint glow on fruit that was safe to eat. Even the streams seemed less poisonous where he walked. It was as if the jungle was beginning to accept his presence. And he knew why. Kara. She was no longer a shadow that came and vanished. She appeared more often now, sometimes watching him, from the trees, sometimes walking silently beside him as if measuring his steps. She spoke little, almost nothing at all. Yet through her gestures, her whistles, and her control of the beasts around her, Elias was beginning to understand her. She was not human in the way he knew humans. But she was not alien either. She was something in between, something born of a choice. Long ago. It began one evening after a hunt. Elias had managed to bring down a small deer-like creature with curved horns and a hide of shimmering blue. He was preparing the fire when Kara appeared, stepping from the shadows as if she had always been part of them. He offered her the meat, unsure if she would accept. For a long moment she only stared, her golden eyes unreadable. Then, without a word, she crouched and began to prepare the food with him. Her hands moved with practiced ease, stripping leaves, crushing herbs, laying them across the meat before setting it on the fire. The flames licked at the food, smoke rising into the canopy. For the first time, they shared a meal. Elias chewed slowly, the strange spices burning his tongue, while Kara ate in silence, her eyes always scanning the shadows around them. He realized she never fully relaxed. Even in rest, she was part of the jungle's alertness. Finally, he spoke. "You're not just surviving here, are you?" He gestured around them. "This place, it's yours." Kara lifted her head. She touched the ground, then pressed her hand against her chest. Elias frowned. "You belong to it?" She studied him a moment, then nodded once. That night, when she vanished back into the trees, Elias dreamed of roots wrapping around his body, pulling him into the earth, until his blood flowed like sap and his skin turned to bark. He woke sweating but strangely calm. Over the next days, Kara began to guide him more openly. When he wandered near a swamp, she appeared and shook her head, pointing instead to a safer path. When he tried to drink from a pool, she tapped his hand sharply, then showed him a hidden spring under the roots of a fallen tree. She was not only protecting him, she was teaching him. Elias began to mimic her signs. When she crouched low, he followed. When she whistled sharp, he froze. Slowly, their movements found rhythm together. One night, after they had fought off another swarm of insect-like predators, Elias sat staring into the fire. "You're showing me things," he said, softly. "But why? Why me?" She looked at him across the flames, her face painted by firelight. Then she stood, beckoning with her hand. Elias hesitated, but something in her eyes told him this was important. So he followed. They walked deep into the jungle, farther than he had gone before. The air grew heavy with mist, glowing faintly blue. The trees here were massive, their roots twisting like the bones of giants. Finally, they reached a clearing. At its center stood a stone structure, half buried in vines and moss. It looked ancient, but not alien. Human design. Square pillars, broken steps, walls etched with faint carvings. Elias froze. This is a colony site. Kara touched the wall with reverence, then pointed to herself. Understanding struck, Elias like thunder. Your people, they were colonists. She nodded slowly. Then, with a sweep of her hand, she gestured to the jungle around them. They stayed, Elias whispered. They didn't build cities. They didn't fight the, planet. They became part of it. Kara stepped closer, placing his hand on the wall beside hers. The stone pulsed faintly under his skin like a heartbeat. Elias pulled his hand back, startled. The wall wasn't dead stone. It was alive. The jungle had swallowed it, merged with it. The people had not only lived here, they had joined with the living world. That's what you are, Elias breathed. Not human, not alien, something else, something wild. Kara's golden eyes held his, sharp and fierce. For the first time, Elias saw a spark of pride in her gaze. The revelation shook him. As they left the ruins, his mind spun. Humanity had always expanded by conquering worlds, shaping them to human design. But here was a colony that had done the opposite. Instead of bending the world, they had bent themselves. They had become feral, at least by human standards, and Kara was the result. It terrified him. But it also fascinated him. He had come seeking a wild lover, some untamed fantasy. What he found instead was an entire way of life, an answer to the emptiness he had felt in the sterile colonies. Here, life was raw, dangerous, unpredictable, but it was real, and the woman before him embodied all of it. The tests grew harder. Kara led him deeper into the jungle where the air shimmered with strange energy. Here, the plants moved when touched, and the beasts were larger, faster, more cunning. One night, they camped on a high ridge, the stars visible through a break in the canopy. Elias sat staring at them, the familiar constellations of human maps, now strange against the backdrop of this untamed world. You know, he said quietly, the colonies look at this planet and see danger. They see something to be tamed, harvested, controlled. But you, he looked at Kara, who sat with, her wolves at her side. You see family? She tilted her head as if weighing his words. Then she touched her chest, and then the earth. Family. Elias felt a lump in his throat, but peace did not last. 3 days later, as they crossed a river, Elias heard the unmistakable hum of machines. He froze. The sound was too sharp, too even, to belong to the jungle. He climbed a ridge and saw them, human colonists, a team of 10, armored, carrying scanners and rifles. They were cutting through the jungle with plasma saws, their machines roaring as they tore down trees. A drone buzzed overhead, mapping the terrain. Elias's stomach tightened. He knew their type, resource surveyors. Once they mapped a zone, more would come. They would cut, mine, and strip until the jungle bled. Kara appeared beside him, silent as shadow. Her golden eyes locked on the colonists. Her wolves growled low. Elias whispered, "They'll destroy everything." Kara's face was unreadable, but he saw the storm rising in her gaze. For the first time, Elias understood the choice before him. He had lived as a human colonist all his life. He had fought for their order, carried their rules. But now, standing beside Kara, he saw what they truly were to her world, intruders, destroyers, and he knew she would not let them stay. That night, as they camped far from the colonists, Elias lay awake staring into the fire. Kara sat nearby, silent, but he felt her watching him. Finally, he spoke. "You want me to choose, don't you?" His voice cracked. between them and you." She said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. Elias closed his eyes. He had come here seeking something wild. He had found it. But now, to keep it, he would have to turn against the very people he came from. He wasn't ready. Not yet, but he knew the moment was coming, and when it did, the jungle would not forgive hesitation. Captain Elias Ward had faced storms, predators, and living plants that moved with thought, but nothing had prepared him for the invasion of humans. The colonists had arrived in force. Drones buzzed above the treetops, scanning and mapping. Machines roared as they tore through the forest. Explosions rang out as trees were felled, and the ground trembled with every cut. Elias watched from the ridge, heart pounding. Kara crouched beside him, silent. Her wolves growled low. She had not moved, but he could feel the tension radiating from her. She was not human, and yet her anger was something he understood. "They don't belong here," Elias whispered. Kara's golden eyes fixed on him, sharp and piercing. Then she whistled, a sharp, commanding sound. The wolves leapt from the ridge, disappearing into the shadows. Elias realized the jungle itself had heard the call. The trees seemed to quiver. Vines stretched toward the colonists' machines. Roots rose from the soil like snakes, twisting and snapping at metal legs. The wind shifted, carrying the sound of Kara's voice even though she spoke no words. The battle had begun. Elias followed her into the heart of the jungle. The colonists had set up a small base, thinking the dense foliage would protect them, but the jungle moved against them. Trees bent unnaturally, creating barriers. Animals attacked in coordinated waves, predators that seemed directed by thought. Birds dove, creating chaos, while packs of wolves and strange lizard-like beasts circled the perimeter. Elias ran beside Kara, keeping pace with her leaps through the canopy and bounds across fallen trees. He carried a rifle, but he realized that bullets alone could not match what the jungle offered. The world itself was alive, and Kara was its voice, its heart, its fury. When a drone flew near, she struck with a swift spear, disabling its sensors. Another drone buzzed close, and vines coiled around it, pulling it to the ground. Elias fired cautiously, watching the colonists' confusion. They were trained soldiers, but nothing in their manuals had prepared them for a jungle that thought hours passed. The colonists fought back, but they were disorganized. Machines were tangled by roots, vehicles overturned in quicksand-like soil that shifted with every step. Explosions that should have cleared paths were swallowed by the jungle's thick canopy. Kara moved like lightning, her golden eyes scanning every threat. Elias followed, sometimes catching her hand when the terrain grew treacherous. He noticed that she did not hesitate. She was part of this world in a way he could never be, but he was learning. When one of the colonists tried to fire on her from a ridge, a sudden downpour hit, turning the slope into mud. The soldier slipped and tumbled down, landing with a heavy crash. Elias rushed to pull him from the mud, and Kara struck again, her spear piercing the controls of a nearby vehicle, rendering it useless. Elias realized something then. This was not just a fight. This was the jungle defending itself. Kara was its guardian, and every action she took was part of a larger plan. By nightfall, the colonists were trapped. Their machines were useless, their vehicles destroyed. They tried to retreat, but the jungle had grown over every path. Rivers had shifted. Roots and fallen trees blocked their way. From the treetops, Kara's whistles echoed, guiding predators and animals in coordinated attacks. Elias moved beside her silently, feeling the pulse of the jungle beneath his feet. He had never imagined that humans could be so powerless against nature. And yet, here they were. Machines irrelevant, weapons useless. Only cunning, strength, and adaptation mattered. When the first light of dawn broke through the mist, Elias saw the colonists surrendering. They raised their hands, knowing they could not escape. Kara approached slowly, golden eyes blazing. The jungle was calm now, but the threat was clear. This world would not be conquered. Elias stepped forward. "You don't have to," he began, but Kara raised her hand. He stopped. She was not cruel. She was not violent without purpose. She was showing them the power of what they had underestimated. The wild, the untamed, the world they thought they could control. The colonists lowered their weapons fully. They understood. After the colonists left, or were forced to leave, the jungle was quiet again. Kara stood atop a fallen tree, golden eyes scanning the horizon. Elias approached cautiously. He did not need to speak. She had shown him what the wild could do. "You were incredible," he said finally. "Not just you, but the jungle. You are part of it." Kara did not respond. She only nodded slightly, then touched his arm. The contact was brief, but it carried meaning, trust, connection, recognition. Elias realized something profound. He had come seeking a feral lover, someone untamed. What he found was far greater. She was not a toy of the wild to admire from afar. She was its spirit, its heart, its protector. And she had included him in her world, not as a master, not as a conqueror, but as a companion who could understand, learn, and grow. He looked at her, truly looked. He saw the intelligence, the instinct, the balance she carried. She was fierce and free. And now, he felt the stirrings of something deeper than desire. Respect, admiration, awe. Elias spent the next days learning from her. She showed him how to move silently through the jungle, how to listen to the signals in the wind and the rustle of leaves. She taught him which plants could heal, which could harm. She introduced him to hidden groves where water glowed faintly with life, where fruits held the sun's warmth in every bite. Every lesson was a test. Every movement was measured. Elias stumbled often, but she never laughed or mocked. Instead, she guided, corrected, and sometimes disappeared, forcing him to figure things out on his own. He realized that to survive here and to be worthy of her trust, he had to become more than human in skill and instinct. He had to merge his intelligence with the rhythm of the jungle. One evening, as the sun set behind the towering trees, Kara led him to a cliff overlooking a massive waterfall. Mist rose like smoke, and rainbows stretched across the spray. Elias watched in awe. "It's beautiful." Kara crouched beside him. She gestured at the falls, then at him. Her golden eyes met his. "You're part of it now," Elias whispered, understanding dawning. "I can't go back, not fully." Kara nodded slightly. She placed her hand on his shoulder, a simple touch, yet it carried meaning, acceptance, inclusion, bond. The jungle around them seemed to breathe. Leaves rustled in a rhythm he could feel in his chest. The animals moved silently in the distance. He realized this was more than survival. It was harmony. He had come seeking someone wild. He had found the wild itself, and it had accepted him. But peace was fleeting. From the horizon, the distant hum of machines returned. Elias froze. Kara stiffened. "They're coming back," he said quietly. Her eyes blazed. This time, there was no hesitation. She whistled sharply. The jungle reacted instantly. Trees bent, vines coiled, and beasts emerged from the shadows. Elias knew the next battle would be decisive. The colonists had seen the power of the jungle once, but they would return stronger, with more machines, more weapons, more ambition. Kara turned to him. Her golden eyes held a silent question. "Are you ready to stand with me, or will you falter like the humans you were once part of?" Elias met her gaze. His heart pounded. He thought of the sterile colonies, of the life he had known. Then he looked at her, the woman who was not just alive, but alive in a way no human could match. "I'm ready," he said firmly. Kara's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. She whistled again, and the jungle surged around them. The war for the jungle was about to reach its peak, and Elias knew, in that moment, he was no longer an outsider. He was part of the wild. Captain Elias Ward stood at the edge of the cliff, feeling the spray of the great waterfall on his face. The mist carried the scent of earth, flowers, and rain, strong, untamed, alive. Below, the jungle stretched endlessly, dense and mysterious, pulsing with life. And somewhere deep within, Kara moved with silent precision, her golden eyes scanning every shadow. The colonists were coming back. He had seen their ships in the distance, glinting metal cutting across the green canopy. They were determined. More machines than last time, more soldiers, more ambition. They had underestimated the jungle once. They would not underestimate it again. But neither would Elias. He turned to Kara. Her presence was steady, fierce, alive. The wolves at her. Side growled low, eyes glowing like embers. She did not speak. She did not need to. Her gaze said everything. "Stand with me. Be one with this world." Elias nodded. He adjusted his gear, checked his weapons, and took a deep breath. For the first time, he did not feel fear. The jungle had already tested him, broken him, taught him. Now it was time to fight, not just for survival, but for life itself. The battle began at first light. The colonists had established a forward base near the river. Their machines roared as they cleared trees, setting up scanners and drones. Soldiers moved cautiously, expecting only natural obstacles. They did not expect the jungle to move against them. Kara whistled sharply, and the leaves above seemed to shiver. Vines rose from the ground, twisting and coiling around machinery. Roots slammed into vehicles, flipping them over. Birds of every size swarmed, pecking, clawing, and diving to disorient the humans. The wolves and jungle beasts struck, from the shadows, precise and deadly. Elias moved beside Kara, running, jumping, and striking with her guidance. He realized now that he was no longer a visitor. The jungle had taught him to feel its pulse, to anticipate its moves, to work with it instead of against it. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat was in rhythm with Kara and the living forest. The colonists tried to fight back. Their blasters fired, their drones circled, and their machinery roared. But the jungle was patient. Every move they made was countered. Trees bent to shield Kara and Elias, while roots and vines ensnared machines. Before they could fire again, one soldier tried to advance across a narrow ridge. Elias saw him, raised his hand, and Kara whistled. From above, a massive branch snapped, sending the soldier tumbling into a pit hidden by foliage. Another drone swooped close, but a vine snaked up and crushed its sensors. The jungle was alive. Kara was its conductor. Elias was learning to play his part. Hours passed. Elias and Kara moved as one, silent and deadly. They disabled machines, guided the beasts, and directed the forces of the jungle. The colonists realized too late that they were outmatched. Technology was strong, but it could not match instinct. Strategy was meaningless when the entire world was aligned against you. Elias felt a strange thrill. He had always relied on skill, intelligence, and training. But now he relied on something greater, the living pulse of the wild, and Kara, who embodied it. He had found what he came searching for, not only a woman, not only a lover, but a bond with life itself. By afternoon, the colonists were defeated. Their machines lay twisted and useless. Their drones were smashed or disabled. The soldiers surrendered, hands raised, knowing resistance was pointless. Kara stood on a high branch, surveying the scene, her golden eyes glowing in the sunlight. Elias approached her carefully. He had fought, learned, and survived. And in that survival he had changed. "You did it," he said quietly. Kara did not smile, but she touched his arm lightly. Her touch was brief, yet it carried meaning, approval, trust, connection. Elias understood. He was no longer merely a human visitor. He had proven himself worthy of the wild. The jungle calmed after the battle. Elias and Kara returned to the clearing where they had first shared a meal. The fire flickered in the evening breeze, casting shadows across the mist. The wolves padded softly around them. Elias felt a sense of peace he had never known. He looked at Kara. "I came here seeking something untamed," he said. "I wanted someone who was wild. I found it. I found you." Kara's eyes met his. There was no need for words. She had already shown him what wild truly meant. Survival, instinct, strength, freedom, and harmony with life itself. She had shown him respect, trust, and partnership. Elias knelt beside her, placing his hand on hers. "I want to stay, not as a master, not as a visitor, but as part of this, as part of you, part of the wild." Kara's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. She touched his chest, then the ground. His heart beat in rhythm with hers and with the jungle. He had found home. Days turned into weeks. Elias learned to move silently through the forest. He hunted with skill, guided by Kara's instincts. He built shelters that blended into the foliage. He discovered hidden springs, glowing plants, and ancient ruins long swallowed by the jungle. Kara taught him everything she knew, not only survival, but balance. He learned that wild was not chaos. It was order of a different kind, a rhythm of life, respect, and trust. Elias realized how empty his life had been before. The colonies offered safety, rules, and machines, but they did not offer freedom. They did not offer life in its purest form. Here, he was alive, truly alive. One evening, as the sun set, painting the jungle in gold and crimson, Elias and Kara sat atop a cliff overlooking the forest. "I understand now," Elias said softly. "The colonies. They think they can conquer worlds, but they don't understand. The world chooses. Life chooses. And you're its heart." Kara studied him. Then she leaned close, her head brushing his shoulder. The wolves lay quietly nearby, eyes half closed. Elias felt a warmth he had never known. It was not only desire. It was connection, belonging, understanding. He was no longer a human visiting a wild place. He had become part of it. He had become part of her. The jungle pulsed around them. Creatures moved silently in the distance. Trees whispered with the wind. Flowers glowed faintly in the mist. Everything was alive. Everything watched. Everything responded. Elias understood now that he did not need to dominate or control. He only needed to respect, learn, and act in harmony. That was the essence of wild. That was the essence of Kara. He turned to her. "Thank you," he said, "for showing me what wild really means." Kara only nodded, her golden eyes reflecting the light of the setting sun. The months passed. The colonists never returned. They had learned the lesson the hard way. Machines were no match for instinct. Metal and fire could not conquer life itself. Elias thrived. He moved with Kara through the jungle, learning every secret, mastering every challenge. The beasts accepted him. The plants seemed to respond to his presence. And most importantly, he had found companionship unlike any he had ever known. Kara remained as fierce and untamed as ever. But now, Elias was no longer afraid. He had proven himself. He had become worthy. One night, under a sky full of stars, Elias looked at Kara and whispered, "I will never leave this place. Not now. Not ever." She did not answer in words. She only took his hand and led him into the trees, where the forest pulsed with life and the sounds of the jungle sang their endless song. Elias understood completely. He had sought the wild, the untamed, the unknown. And he had found it, not just in Kara, but in the living, breathing world around them. He had found freedom, he had found life, and he had found love, not the kind tamed by rules or expectations, but the kind that thrived in danger, mystery, and the heartbeat of the wild. The jungle had chosen him, Kara had accepted him, and together they became one with the wild.